The truth hurts, but lies hurt more. The simple solution would be to stop talking altogether, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. How is the value of truth portrayed in children's cartoons? Specifically those from the 2000s, about geometrically shaped kids trapped in a be careful what you wish for formula, with fathers played by Darren Norris, and were frequently worked on by Jack Thomas and Heather Martinez. Welcome to the Showdown. In this episode, I'll be comparing the Fairly OddParents episode, Mr. Right, and the Replacements episode, Truth or Daring, which are both about the main characters being able to deceive everyone around them to disastrous effect. I'm sorry I made the Replacements sound like a Fairly OddParents ripoff in that introduction, but there's a surprising amount of similarities between the two shows that I'll get into when I cover the Replacements in a couple weeks. These showdowns have started to function more like samplers of upcoming reviews, which I hope isn't a bad thing. But going back to the Fairly OddParents after these has been tricky. But remember my full name. Mr. Right is one of the many episodes in the show's 4th season to center around Timmy wishing for a supernatural change to himself so his life can be easier, but it only gets harder. It's a setup they repeated a couple times, but it worked well whenever they used it, and this is no exception. It starts with Timmy having a rough day at school, failing a class on analyzing art, getting beaten up by Francis, and coming home to find Vicky burning his comic book collection for funsies. Things aren't going his way, with everyone teasing him by playing guessing games with him so he can be wrong and further humiliated. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but this is the Fairly OddParents, and Cosmo and Wanda can change that in an instant. Timmy wishes that he can be right all the time, and tests it on his parents, who only appear in this scene. It's a fun one regardless, as they really want him to have cold cereal, but Timmy changes the rules of nature by saying they made him waffles.
Hey! Why do I have to eat mold Muriel if he's having waffles?
A couple more scenes passed of Timmy being able to alter reality by making up the truth, a power every US politician wishes they had. He's even able to change America. After saying there's only 49 stars on the American flag, even though there's clearly 16, this happens.
Wonderful news! North and South Dakota have finally settled all their differences and have agreed to become one big Dakota!
Now with Crocker back on Timmy's case about him having Timmy messes up by saying he doesn't have any, which makes Cosmo and Wanda disappear. Oops. Cue some exposition about Timmy wondering how he's gonna fix this, which even if you don't know much about Fairly OddParents lore, should be easy to follow. He can't tell anyone directly, so he has to find someone who won't listen to him. That's hard to do on this particular day, but he inevitably finds success in good old Francis. He's stung by a magically appearing swarm of wasps, to the point where he can't see or hear anything clearly, so Timmy tells him, and after a bit more fooling around, undoes the wish. But it seems all the truths he made are still active. This is a fun little story that shows you how important it is to have a grasp on the truth, and that bending reality to your will could have its downsides. It's very dense with action, character interactions, and jokes, but it's not one of the funniest episodes ever. There are some that hit it out of the park, like the Dakotas making up, and Cosmo's extreme measure in making sure Timmy's no longer right all the time. Plus, whenever the supporting characters are getting too mean or crazy, Timmy will get back at them somehow, making everything feel well-deserved. This is also notable for being one of the only episodes to prominently feature Francis, and you can see why. Show's only big enough for so many major bully characters, and Francis tends to leave less of an impact on account of being more stereotypical. Plus, him getting swole just isn't a pretty sight. I've said it before that gross out doesn't really work in the Fairly OddParents style, and this isn't sickly or anything, it's just a poor fit. But I don't take issue with any of the rest of the episode, it's pretty good. There are episodes in this era that follow this formula in funnier or more interesting ways, but this isn't a bad addition to the lineup. Now, not many of you will have heard of The Replacements or watched it since it was new, so I'll ease you into the story of Truth or Daring nice and easy. The show's dad character, Dick Daring, is a stunt driver who won the title of Mayor of Pleasant Hills in a skate-off in the 4th episode of the series and is now running for re-election, but has opted to spend most of his time cutting ribbons, while his assistant, Harold Pete Doverson, has been doing all the actual work of running town.
What a workaholic!
While filming the campaign advert, his adopted children, Todd and Riley, get into an argument about how Todd's wrong all the time and Riley's too honest, prompting Todd to pull a prank on her. Their mother, who's a secret agent, you're writing this down, aren't you, has a spice rack with truth salt that Todd puts in Riley's food so she can only tell the whole truth and nothing but it, including what she thinks of her dad as a mayor.
You need to see him as mayor! He's lousy! Huh? Lousy with ideas that are lousy!
Todd then has some lie spice so he can tell more convincing lies to his teachers and peers for his amusement.
Just yesterday, we adopted a very special dog named Peppy. Little did we know she was a highly trained CIA dog. Her specialty? Eating top secret documents to keep them out of enemy hands.
What a guy, right? Well, he gets his comeuppance when they all realize they've been duped and chase him down, and as if things couldn't get any worse, he uncontrollably lies his way into the United States military, and any time he tries to tell the truth, he only digs himself deeper. This raises the question of whether this is too much karma he's receiving. To that I determined that this is very clearly a moral they want to hammer in about dishonesty, that it takes you to bad places. And it conveys that harshly, yes, but effectively. Meanwhile, back in the A-plot, Riley becomes such a good, honest sport that people think she's qualified to run for office, and before you can ask, who's running Pleasant Hills? Oh yeah, him. She's the third running mate and top candidate. But this causes further turmoil between her and Dick, with him taking the new competition from his own adoptive flesh and blood very hard. It should be said that, even by cartoon dad standards, Dick isn't very mature, but I can totally understand why he's so distraught here. But this whole plot's filled with plot holes. How is public pressure enough to get a 13-year-old girl this far in the polls? Why isn't she disqualified for being 13 until after she wins the election? And shouldn't there be a more satisfying ending than Dick and Harold tying the one vote, effectively reverting to the status quo? Two reasons I don't try to get political. One, my specialty is 15-year-old cartoons, not ethics or rights or anything like that. Two, I think not knowing a lot about mayoral elections makes the leaps in this story's logic and Riley's frustration with being unable to get out of the race a little funnier. And you know who doesn't know a lot about mayoral elections? Kids. I'm not defending the plot holes, but I am saying filling them in wasn't necessary. There's certainly an emotional core there that holds it together and makes it worth seeing happen. Compared to the Fairly OddParents episode, this episode deals more with how honesty affects the speaker rather than the world around them. The B-plot with Todd uncontrollably lying his way into the military is the polar opposite of Mr. Right, but it's similarly amusing. This makes it an easier comparison than last time. I think both are pretty funny comedy of errors of fears, with plots that aren't realistic but they don't need to be, and decent comic distribution. But if I had to pick my favorite of these, truthfully, I'd have to go with Mr. Right. The message is clearer, and I find it to be a little funnier. For what it's worth, Truth or Daring is a good episode over the replacements, but it just couldn't beat out the Fairly OddParents in this case. But I'll have more to say about it soon. Goodbye for now.